A woman named Julia Banks is trying to convince the police that she has been set up. Detective Pope wondered why she had reconnected with her ex-boyfriend, who had repeatedly behaved abusively toward her. Photos on his phone and Facebook messages confirmed this. Despite this, Julia denies having any communication with Michael Vargas. But the detective finds her arguments unconvincing. Michael's body was found in Julia's house, and she is the main suspect. The events then take us back 6 months. Colleagues raise a toast to Julia, who is the chief editor of a popular online magazine. Julia now wants to live for herself but will continue to work remotely. Julia is not sure if she made the right decision. The sad experience of the relationship with Michael has made her more cautious towards men. But her friend Ali thinks that David is a good guy and will never hurt Julia. After saying goodbye to the colleagues, Julia moved in with her boyfriend, David Connover. The couple plans to get married soon. Meanwhile, David's ex-wife Tessa is putting on makeup. She is planning to bring their daughter Lily to her father for the weekend, as agreed. Tessa seems friendly to Julia. Lily was very happy to see her father. Hugging the daughter, Tessa left. Julia does everything to befriend her fiancé's daughter from his first marriage. At night, Lily couldn't sleep and came to them. Tessa also couldn't sleep. In the morning, David left for work. Julia didn't stop thinking about her ex-boyfriend, who called her a nobody. David called and said he would be late. But Julia didn't mind having dinner with Lily without him. While the girl was playing, Julia was cooking dinner. Suddenly the doorbell rang. It was Tessa, who wanted to make sure everything was okay. Lily asked her mother to stay for dinner. Julia was embarrassed but didn't object. However, Tessa began to behave as if she were the mistress of the house. Furthermore, she stayed to put Lily to bed. Of course, Julia was not thrilled about this. Tessa admitted that it was hard for her to accept that their family had broken up. Before leaving, she wished Julia good night. At night, the woman woke up from strange noises. David still wasn't home. At some point, she saw Michael outside the window and screamed. But it was just her imagination. It turned out to be David. Julia told her boyfriend about what had happened today. David said that Tessa needed time to adjust to the new situation. Julia is settling into David's house. She also learned Lily's schedule to keep up with all the events. Later, Julia called Ali and expressed her concerns about the situation with David's ex-wife. But her friend was sure that she shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Seeing a beautiful dress in a store window, Julia immediately fell in love with it. But her mood was ruined when the saleswoman said that Tessa was a regular customer at this store. The town is small, so everyone knows each other. Later, Julia told David that they should tell Tessa and Lily about their plans to get married. David and Julia came together to the children's holiday. Tessa was of course also there. After performance, Tessa watched as Lily left with David and his new girlfriend. The girl was clearly having fun. Watching this, Tessa goes crazy with jealousy. She thinks that Julia wants to take her place. Tessa is into horseback riding, but even sports do not help her get rid of anger. In the evening, Julia attended a party to celebrate David's successful contract. His new brewery is thriving. Some time ago he gave up his career as a banker for his dream. Tessa was also there. She wore the same dress that Julia wanted to buy. Tessa took the stage and gave a speech, saying that she had always supported David in his ambitions and even agreed to move for him. Almost none of the guests knew who this woman was. Julia's mood soured, but when David offered her to dance, she agreed. Tessa did not take her eyes off them. She couldn't bear the thought of her ex-husband being happy with another woman. Suddenly Tessa noticed that Julia had left her phone. Later, Julia realized that her phone was missing. She did not suspect that at that time Tessa had found her date of birth on the internet to guess her password. And she succeeded. Tessa viewed all the photos on Julia's phone and also found a copy of the restraining order against Michael Vargas. This immediately interested Tessa. The next day, she came to her husband's workplace and asked if he was sure about Julia. David said that he did not need her advice or permission. When the ex-husband told her that he and Julia were getting married soon, Tessa thought it was a bad idea. According to her, Julia didn't know anything about raising children. The ex-wife began reminiscing about their past life, and David hinted that she should leave. After work, he gave Julia her phone, which he found under the car seat. Julia received a call from an unknown. But there was silence on the other end. Tessa behaves towards her daughter like a real tyrant. In the afternoon they are visited by Helen, Tessa's mother, who is critical of her daughter in everything. Tessa didn't like it when her mother said that David's bride was very good. But the daughter, according to Helen's opinion, neglected her appearance. Tessa is having a hard time right now. She wants to try to find a job, because she has an education. But Helen thinks the daughter won't succeed because she couldn't even keep her family together. Later, while looking at wedding photos, Tessa cried. In the evening, the couple was visited by friends. Sarah, David's friend, told Julia that Tessa was a very angry and jealous woman. Many years ago, David wanted to leave her, but he had to change his plans because Tessa got pregnant. All evening Julia received calls from an unknown. Meanwhile, Tessa created a fake Julia Facebook page. The next day, while Julia was getting ready to take a bath, someone broke into the house and stole her things, including the engagement ring and David's watch. The doorbell rang. At the doorstep Julia found a bouquet of flowers. At that moment Tessa arrived, saying she had seen a man leaving their yard. Julia no longer hid her displeasure, asking Tessa not to come to them without an invitation. But Tessa said that as long as her daughter is here, they will have to put up with her presence. Julia tried to find out who sent the bouquet. The flower delivery service said that the order was anonymous. Julia befriended Lily, they had a lot of fun together. However, Julia continues to be plagued by nightmares. She's sure Michael is somewhere nearby. At night, she called Ali and said she felt like these calls and flowers were from Michael. Julia doesn't have the courage to talk to David about it. Ali advises her to finally tell the truth to her fiancé. Meanwhile, Tessa is sitting on Facebook on behalf of Julia. She sent a message to Michael Vargas and almost immediately received a response. They started a correspondence. Michael texted that he missed her. Tessa sent him a provocative photo of Julia. Meanwhile, she cannot find her ring anywhere. Later, Julia crossed paths with Tessa on the street, and this time Tessa was very friendly. They apologized to each other for the conversation yesterday. When Tessa suggested having lunch together, Julia happily agreed. Tessa told Julia that her marriage to David fell apart because of her infidelity. David devoted all his time to work, so she felt very lonely. Julia understands Tessa, but unlike David's ex-wife, she has a job. It seems that the women had a very nice conversation. However, when Tessa started telling Julia spicy details about her marital life with David, Julia was confused. David behaves completely differently with her. Tessa asked Julia to show her the ring that belonged to David's grandmother. Julia lied, saying it was being cleaned. That same evening, Tessa went through Julia's things, preparing to carry out her plan. While strolling with Lily at the fair, Julia received another call from an unknown number. Distracted, Julia lost Lily. In a panic she found David and told him that Lily was missing. David ran to inform the guards. At one point, Julia thought she saw Michael again. She felt unwell, but she continued to search for Lily. It turned out that Tessa had already found her daughter. She blamed everything on Julia. Tessa also said that she supposedly saw someone Julia's acquaintance approaching Lily. David demanded an explanation from his bride. He was also interested in where her ring was. Julia admitted that it had disappeared. But she has no idea what acquaintance Tessa was talking about. David was upset because Tessa is afraid to leave Lily with them. He fears that his ex-wife will forbid him from seeing the daughter. Julia couldn't sleep all night. Tessa tries to teach her daughter to ride a horse. Helen is disappointed that her granddaughter cannot do it. The girl is scared, but her mother forbids her from getting off the horse. Julia joined them, and this time she was very confident. Despite Tessa's prohibition, she took Lily, as it was David's turn to spend time with the daughter. In the car, Julia told Lily that she knows what it's like when your loved one treats you badly. Julia's father was just like that. When Julia asked who the man was that Lily was talking to at the fair, the girl didn't know what she meant. In the evening, David couldn't find the watch that Julia had given him. Later, there was a dinner with David's main investors. Julia can't stop thinking about Tessa, who claimed that she and David had a crazy passion. Julia decided to spring into action and took her fiancé to the restroom. At the same time, Tessa continues to exchange messages with Michael on behalf of Julia. The next day, Tessa demanded an apology from her daughter for disobedience. She cut her hair because Julia allegedly wasn't taking care of it. When Julia received an email from Michael, who wrote that he missed her, she panicked. At that moment the doorbell rang. Tessa brought her daughter, who was in tears. Learning that Tessa had cut off Lily's hair as punishment, Julia was shocked and tried to kick her boyfriend's ex-wife out. Hearing David's voice, Tessa began screaming, pretending that Julia had attacked her. Deliberately tripping, Tessa fell down the stairs, which added to the plausibility of her story. David initially believed her. He took his ex-wife and daughter away. Watching this, Julia realized that Tessa would do anything to ruin her life. In the evening, after covering up a scratch with foundation, Tessa was very pleased with herself. Julia told David what really happened. He no longer knows what to believe. David is very tired of constant arguments and promised to talk to his ex-wife again, hoping that she will finally leave them alone. Ali took a ticket for the next flight and flew in to support the friend. Thanks to her hacker friend, they were able to find out some information about Tessa. It turns out that she was arrested at 16. Tessa set fire to her father's house, who left her mother for another woman. Luckily no one was hurt, but Tessa continued to exhibit obsessive and aggressive behavior. Ali changed her mind about the friend's engagement and advised her to go back home. But Julia is not willing to give up and wants David to know the truth. When Ali left, Julia heard the front door open. She thought it was David returning, but it was Michael. Julia tried to call her fiancé, but Michael hit her, saying that she had asked him to come herself. Julia immediately understood that Tessa was involved in this. She managed to injure Michael and escape. Tessa had been watching near the house the whole time. When Julia left, Tessa entered the house and told Michael that he had failed his task. Michael had never seen her before, but realized that she was the one who had arranged it. Tessa took Michael's life. Julia told the police her version of events. She was sure that Tessa had set her up by creating a fake Facebook page and communicating with Michael. But the detective found this story implausible. At home, Tessa cleaned herself up. Learning about what had happened, David immediately went to the police station. Julia apologized to him for not telling about Michael. She didn't want the beloved to think she was weak. David promised the bride-to-be that everything would be okay. Detective Pope called him in for questioning and showed him printouts of Julia and Michael's messages. She was supposedly planning to sell her ring and David's watch. He doesn't understand why she would need to do that. On the detective's advice, David was about to go home to his daughter. Learning that her fiancé had left, Julia was very upset. Tessa destroyed the evidence. The doorbell rang. It was David, who wanted to see Lily. Julia was released on her own recognizance during the investigation. Her phone was taken as evidence. She tried to call David from a landline, but he left his smartphone in the car. Meanwhile, seeing Julia's ring on Tessa's finger, David understood who was really behind all this. At that moment Julia rushed to her beloved, certain that he is in danger. Tessa told David that it was all Julia's fault for wanting to take her place. Realizing that his ex-wife was out of her mind, David intended to take the daughter from there, but Tessa knocked him out. Telling unconscious David that she would take care of him, Tessa briefly left the room. During this time, Julia snuck into the house. After making sure that David was alive, she went for Lily and took her to the car. Tessa treated to David's wounds and then tied him up, unaware that Julia was watching them. The frightened woman wanted to call 911, but Tessa noticed her and attacked, knocking her down. Tessa started insulting Julia, calling her worthless and useless. This made Julia more determined, and she fought back against Tessa. A fight broke out between the women. In the end Julia knocked Tessa out and went to help David. But at that moment Tessa woke up and attacked her rival again. Julia urged her to stop before it was too late. Seeing her reflection in the mirror, Tessa actually stopped. She voluntarily passed away in front of Julia's eyes. Before Tessa stopped breathing, she asked Julia to take care of Lily. In tears Julia began to call for David. When he came to his senses, he apologized to her for not believing. The police and ambulance arrived. Detective Pope realized that Julia was telling the truth. Seeing the father's bride, Lily embraced her. 6 months passed. David, Lily, and Julia live as a happy family. By the way, the couple recently got married. Ali often visits them. And everything was fine until Helen knocked on the door. She came to see her granddaughter.